pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So moved.
Can I just let Bob look up for an amendment? I'll take care of it.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said this is, in our minutes, there was a mistake made in the last
Oh, yes.
meeting. That Phil had made a motion, he actually can't make a motion, it's Mike here to make the motion. So we gotta take care of that.
I'll make a motion to amend.
All right. Okay, we have a second.
Second.
All right, first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. And now for the record. Motion. All in favor? Anybody opposed? All right. Okay, first up in the resolutions, we have a resolution appointing an individual to fill a vacancy in the office of county legislature in and for the 15th legislative district.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
All right, first and second, any discussion? Frank?
How many legislators represent the city of Oswego?
I don't know.
I asked the question, how many legislators represent the city of Oswego?
I think there's four. We all got a sliver of it.
That's what I'm asking. And why can't we have the other three cover that? I mean, you got an election coming up that there's two candidates. If there's only one candidate, I could understand making an appointment. But you got two candidates and you've got three other people that could cover that district.
They couldn't necessarily cross into another district. You know,
It's common for people in other districts to ask for help from other legislators.
I would say it would not be fair to the constituents to not be represented by somebody in their district.
I've covered that on the floor.
Usually chosen by the committee anyway. That's what we've always saw.
So moved.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution commission reappointing director to the board of directors of Western Regional Contract Betting Corporation pursuant to racing or mutual wagering, reading law 502. The name is Mark Lombardo, who's been in there. Got a motion.
Second.
First and second. Any discussion? All
Mr.
in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next up, we have a resolution urging Governor Oko to veto A.042822P-S350 IV as concerns local elections to even numbered years, which is going to be an additional cost. I don't think that would be a problem.
Make a motion to discuss.
Second. We have a first and second. Wait, have discussion on that? Right?
What is the cost, the additional cost? I mean, the statement in there is that there was no study done by the state as what the financial savings or costs are going to be, but did we do one locally as to what our local costs are going to be or what we might save or cost us by eliminating one in the odd years and putting it into the even years? Did we do one?
Okay.
Well, first thing, you're gonna have to have an election
for them on the third year to carry them into the fourth year, and then they're gonna have you run again. So people are gonna have to run 2 elections. And the ballot, right now the ballots, we do 17, we've gone up to 22. And adding all of those races on is most likely gonna mean a 2-page ballot, which will be double the cost of the ballots themselves, which we run around 50,000 for a general election.
So the cost eventually is gonna save you $50,000.
How do you?
You said that,
You're still gonna have to have the ballots for
Right.
for the years of the people that can't be moved to the 1 year.
okay, all right.
And then on the year that you have everybody, most likely that'll be a double ballot. You can't put them on the backside because that's where the
But
problems.
what will it eliminate on the odd years?
Nothing. You're still gonna
So
have
it's
people
not
on
gonna-
You
there,
can't change me or the sheriff or the district attorney.
and you're always gonna have councilmen that have to run that odd year because they're split. It's 2 this year, 2 the next year.
Mhm.
If there's any vacancies, you're gonna have to have them on there.
So to answer the question, we really haven't done a complete study as to what it would cost us.
She
what it's
just
gonna
told
save.
you
No,
$50,000.
No, it's $50,000 is what she said the first one,
Extra.
because it's gonna be double, but she didn't say what it's gonna save the preceding years after that,
It
which
won't-
I can
no, it
understand.
won't save.
No,
Because you already still have to do those elections also.
okay,
Every
okay.
fourth year, you're gonna have.
What are the benefits
two
that you
pages.
see? Do you have benefits?
I
to-
see the benefits of the local elections having a bigger turnout going into the elections. Yes, you will.
I would disagree. You have a study on that, showing it?
Whenever you look at what your turnout is for your elections, when you have, a state election versus, your local election, you have maybe half as many people show up. But it's okay. Just ask the question. Got it answered. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, next up, we have a resolution authorizing execution of a retainer agreement with Simmons, Hanley, and Conroy LLC relative to investigating the feasibility of commencing litigation against insulin and diabetes medication manufacturers, ETA. And this is due to the artificial increase of cost of insulin and other diabetic medication.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
This is the same law firm that's handling the opioid litigation for the county. They've done a very good job. I think we have maybe one other entity in the opioid litigation that has not reached resolution by way of settlement or verdict. They're a national law firm. They've obtained multi-billion-dollar judgments against pharmaceutical manufacturers as part of the National Prescription Opioid multi-district litigation. They've also sued various other entities, and if you look at their website, they're well equipped to handle this. What this is, this will allow them to get into the records to see if the health plan, jail medical, have overpaid for insulin and other diabetic medications over several years with the statute of limitations. And if they determine that it makes sense, a separate resolution will be brought back to the floor to commence litigation.
Any other discussion on that? We have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Next up, we have a resolution amending the resolution number 207 of 2020 concerning the retention and disposition schedule for local government records, LGS 1 as amended. And I guess the state is, they were updated in 2022.
The state, the legislature previously adopted the amended LGS 1, and then the state amended it again in 2022. This is just to bring the county into conformance with the state record retention schedule, and then we distributed to the departments accordingly.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion, with a second. First and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next up, we have a resolution authorizing entering into a stipulation for the tax certiorari proceeding with the town of Valmy, High Score Capital concerning former Addis ethanol plant facility properties.
High Score commenced a grievance procedure on the Addis ethanol facility, part to the stipulation the county has with High Score. As you may know, the facility is still assessed as an operating ethanol facility and has not operated since 2019. The town and High Score reached resolution to propose reduction in the assessed value that's more accurate, close to market value. The county is a necessary party because we own the facility, and this would allow the judge to reduce the assessed goals, in accordance with the stipulation.
Word first.
Motion to discuss.
First and second. Frank, you got something?
Yeah, I just, what is the, then I've spoken with the leaders that be at the school district, because this affects the school district quite heavily, and they're not very happy with it at all. What is the total loss that we're going to look at in the school district, which the rest of the taxpayers in that school district are gonna have to pick up that loss? No? Okay. I understand.
I did some analysis on that. It's about $500,000 that they're going to miss out on in tax revenue.
Okay. The $500,000 is gonna have to be passed on to the rest of the taxpayers in that district. And there's 4 other legislators that represent that district. And hopefully they've called the school district to find out what effect that'll have on the taxpayers in that district. Yeah, I just, I understand it's either we do it because then we won't have any, money from them, but, if we're getting it at a bargain basement rate, right now it's a blue light special going from 39 million down to 12 million. It's a big difference, and my people are not happy.
I would just add that they didn't object when they were getting overpaid.
Well, I know that they objected quite heavily when when they're told how much they were going to lose. Okay, nobody does.
Okay, we've also been in contact with the school district attorney regarding this, and we'll follow up with them. The county is paying the school tax bill and has been paying the school tax bill. It's not the plan. So
Right.
the county is paying this because it's delinquent. Addis has not paid any taxes, so the county's been making everybody else whole on this.
We're losing that because of a stipulation that we had with the IDA where they let things go so long, then all of a sudden we get hammered with they're not paying their taxes, and we find out afterwards. But we'll argue it on the floor. But I just know that I talked to the school district just the other day at the school meeting, and they were not happy at all with it. So just know that. I mean, I understand what everybody's going to say, that you're either going to get this or you're going to get nothing. And I'm sorry that if I buy a house that's a $300,000 house, if I buy it for $150,000 because I don't think it's worth $300,000, on argument day, I have to go and argue to get it reassessed, and we're going to reassess it without that argument. That's all. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I guess what I like to say here is that since the plant has been operating and they haven't been paying the taxes, the taxpayers in Oswego County have been paying it all, okay? Because we keep all jurisdictions whole, so the rest of the taxpayers in the county have been paying it money. So I think it's just one of those things, but I think it's not fair that the rest of the taxpayers pay that much money that the school district involved. So it's kind of a catch-22, but we do that for everything. So
I just wanted to add that if the goal was to get it back up and running, to get our taxes, and wasn't there a full-fledged appraisal done on the property to prove what it's actually worth before the assessment was lowered? I thought they ordered an appraisal.
I'm sure it did.
one of the other things, the plant's closed. If you want it to come back up and run, and it starts running, they could probably reassess it, right? But, you know,
Doubtful.
we shouldn't rely on everyone else to pay the burden or the difference.
I understand what you're saying, but
No
as-
one bailed out the city of Oswego when we lost the steam station, just so you know. I just want you to know that, because
Right, okay, well,
I took a pretty big hit.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, we lost a lot when we lost Nestle's, okay? But I'm just saying that as a representative of that school district, I cannot be in favor of this on the floor in here. That's why I asked the questions.
Well, once
Thank
it
you very
comes back
much.
up and starts running, they should be able to reassess, won't they?
That'll never happen,
Why?
because it just won't.
Won't the legislator pick up on that? and
No, I'm
request?
telling you they won't.
Okay.
But thank you. It's a good idea to do, I understand that, but I can't be in favor of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm looking for a first and second.
I'll make a motion that passes.
Second. All right, have a first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Mr. Chairman? Next up, we have a resolution. Sorry.
It just occurred to me, before we got too far forward, got all done, that the first resolution we're discussing today, the actual gentleman that's in that resolution is in citizen, but he's in the room, and anyone that doesn't know, it's Kevin Hill. So just as a way of introduction, I didn't want everybody to run without putting a name on their face. So, Citizen Hill. Yes. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing the acceptance of additional tier grant funding of $97,921.64 from the State Board of Elections to Oswego County.
That will, one of the allowable expenses for that grant is to put that total towards purchase price of our new voting system, so that's about 10% of the cost. So we've already earmarked that to go toward that purchase.
Okay, so that was 10% of the cost.
Approximately, yes. Most of these grants have very small lists of allowable expenses, but fortunately, that grant is structured so it can go towards the purchase price.
Motion.
Second. First and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing acceptance of additional AB or PP grant funding of $30,083.98 from the State Board of Elections to Oswego County.
Generally, we go through about $100,000 in postage a year, and that additional monies gives us an additional $30,000. And with next year being a presidential and having 3 elections, we're going to have outrageous amount of postage. So this should help offset the postage costs. It's the time frame on this grant goes until March 31st of next year, so it should get us through this year's general and the presidential primary on April 2nd. The majority of our mailing should be done by March 31st.
Okay. Thank you. I'm looking for a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. We have a resolution authorizing a budget modification for the county clerk purchase of records management system for our record center. Comes in all of $40,000.
So this is our, this is my ask for the internal ARPA funding, and we talked about it at the last budget, knowing that we were gonna do this project. So this is just moving the money from that internal ARPA account over to, I put in a consulting line that we already had established so that we can pay the vendor who you approved last month.
Is there a motion for that?
So,
First and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next up, we have GC 10, which is a resolution setting standard work days and reporting for elected and appointed officials, which we have already done, but they need some more information of social security numbers and retirement registration. So they keep them state.
Those are redacted in the resolution, but on the transmission of the state comptroller, they'll be.
Do you have copies of
We
that?
didn't get it.
The numbers aren't on here, I mean, it's
Okay.
just the regular. Obviously, they're not going to give it to us, it's just a copy of the state.
I think the question was whether that resolution has been distributed to the committee.
You have all, I gave you all the copies.
Could you pass the resolution?
You didn't pass it.
Sorry.
My fault.
Well, your chair's not here, that's what he's supposed to do. Vice chair, I mean. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay.
Everything?
Sorry.
Additional information, like the retirement registration, social security. That's it. That's okay. That's it. Just do it again.
I didn't change my hours. I didn't change my hours.
No, I didn't think it came, so.
Yep.
I'll make a motion.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we got reporting, county clerk, please.
So I just want everybody to know that there's a little bit of confusion out there thanks to the state. When it comes to pistol permits, there is a recertification that's changed. So if you haven't received a pistol permit in the last couple of years, you need to go from a 5-year to a 3-year recertification online. That's by the state police. That is not through my office. My office, in conjunction with the sheriff's office and the judge, do the Brady bill, which is every 5 years. That one's very, very important as well. We don't know what the consequences are for the state police one at this point, but everybody's confused by it. If you go online and you have a constituent that goes online, and something isn't just so there's a gun that they put on a month ago or something, you got to remind them that when we do the paper amendment forms here in the clerk's office, we sent those to the state police. It takes months. I mean months, like 6 months to a year in order for that to get in the system. I've talked to state police numerous times, said, hey, we'd be a pilot county, let us do like an internal, like scan over the information, create a system. I actually have I've talked to IQS, our vendor, for our software management in our office, and they'd actually help them create this and work together. They have no interest in it. The other thing is when it comes to state police and the changes that were passed last year, they're going to take over the background checks that are done by the FBI. That's starting, I believe, next week it is. There's going to be a charge for ammunition and for a handgun or a firearm in general. They have no facility built yet for this. They have no allocation of manpower for it, and they have no computer system at this point. So we're waiting to see what's going to roll out next week and how this is going to go. But once again, we're doing everything we can here locally to help alleviate that. We're trying not to, unfortunately, the law kind of takes our law-abiding citizens and can create criminals out of them, and we're trying to protect our law-abiding gun owners in this county from
going down that path that's been set up for them.
Will we be notified that we need recertification?
No, you will
I
not.
have been in the past.
No. That's the big thing is there's so many of them that they're not able to do it. I mean, this isn't the state police, but they kind of built the plane as they were flying it here. The legislature did when they were passing it, and that's what I mean about making law-abiding citizens into criminals. And they just don't know.
Yeah, I got one question for, so those owners of pistols that just recertified the 5-year requirement that you sent in this year to meet that credit.
For the Brady on your permit, the one that we do in our office, or the state one?
Oh, the state one.
So the state one would have changed yours to 3 years.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
If you did it from January on, because that law went into effect was passed last September, so that would have been changed from January on.
so if you filed to meet the 5-year, we should be all right. The rest, we gotta be next 3
It
years.
would be 3 years, yeah.
After this.
If anybody has any questions, I walked my staff through it. We have been going into the state system and helping the constituent who's in front of us try to figure out what the issue might be. And the biggest thing right now is, like I said, those handguns, because like if I have a Glock I added last month, I look on my recertification, it's not registered there yet. So I'm having to go in and help them amend it. And it'll just give a disclaimer that you have to add it locally and everything. Quite honestly, it's already been added locally, but I just double check up my system to make sure it's going to match the state. That's the biggest problem right now.
Okay. Any other questions for Terry?
I'll ask him later.
All right, next up we have Strategic Initiative Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we're continuing to work with the county attorney to get everybody who's been awarded funds under contract. We're just about done with that last group. I think if you recall, the last time we brought this before the legislature, there was like 25 awardees, and every one of those contracts is individualized. So county attorney's been a great help with him and his staff. And we're doing monitoring and updating status reports for people who were awarded, make sure they're on track to spend their money properly and on time. Also, since the Micron announcement, the shift for a lot of my time has been towards trying to get communities ready for that. So I've been working closely with Operation Oswego County, talking to the communities that are going to be most impacted by that. How can we help them? What are they trying to become or not become? And trying to get them to work quickly to update their local land use plans if they want to have anything to say about what happens in their communities, and then helping those who have plans but need resources, try to find grant money for water and sewer rezoning and things like that.
All right. Anybody have any other questions for Dave? Okay, thank you. Next up we have Real Property Department.
Thank you. Last month we had facilitated a meeting with the local assessors association, and we discussed a number of items. One of them, though, was the changes in the income requirement for the senior exemption, the one that was passed last year. We have a section 3 of that law that describes how the income is calculated, and it's out of date now. So next month I'll bring an amendment to you all for amending that so it's more compliant with what the state law says now, which is basically based on the federal adjusted gross income from a tax return. Before it was a lot more cumbersome description, so it's simplified. There were a number of local options that could have been added to that, but the assessors felt that a lot of those weren't necessary. So we're pretty much going with the standard state definition of income, so it'll be pretty simple.
Basically, it's just going to be taken off of income tax.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just using an income tax return to take the adjusted gross income and adding Social Security to it, with a few other minor modifications. But of an info memo with that, so it should hopefully lay it out pretty clearly.
I have a quick question for you, just kind of unrelated, but Frank mentioned earlier that if you bought a house for 150 and it was assessed at 300, don't most assessors at that point drop to the new rate that it was purchased for, or do they keep it at the higher rate?
A lot of them don't tend to change those assessments based on sales. That's kind of, usually it goes the other way. Usually it's increasing it, and they call that sales chasing, which is, I hesitate to use the word illegal. It's frowned upon.
But it's used.
It's done. But it's definitely not the way that it should be done. So yeah, the opposite usually isn't true. They tend to not change assessments unless the homeowners come before them and say, hey, I purchased this for a lot less. Can we talk about it? And that's why I always encourage people, especially when they're buying houses for lower than what it was assessed for, to speak with their assessor. Because you can do that at any time in a year. You don't have to do that formally. So.
Good to know.
But they won't change the assessment until grievance day, right?
No, they can change it at any time.
They
They're always working on the next year. So right now they're working on 2024's year. So they can change any of those assessments at any time now. Your grievance day is just your formal chance to do it. And then something else that they brought up was hoping to get their all their sales information, because we input the sales for them. They're hoping to start getting that digitally, and thankfully we did work with Terry in his office, and I think we've got a plan in place to start sending everything digitally starting next week. So my postage budget should, well, it's going to increase for those senior notifications, but it will decrease a little bit because I won't have to mail feeds anymore. So.
And my paper book shall go down a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it's a solution that works for everyone. So.
Any other questions for Darby? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the board of elections.
We have our new machines. They came last week, the week before, and we've been working on getting them numbered and the serial numbers all certified and all of that. And we also have a bill out there that is, the full price was $996,719.35. And we were doing the process of, we thought we were, of a capital project, which we didn't know the whole ins and outs, so we didn't do that.
Drop the ball.
We dropped the ball. It's the first time we ever did a capital project. But we have to pay $797,375.48 by September 25th, around there. So we're asking for help.
Yeah.
Election commissioners came to me, first earned it running this with the bill yesterday, and they came to talk to me today, and I appreciate it. I don't want anybody to think too badly about it, because you have been telling us these machines are coming, but we didn't know what the price was going to be, or when they were coming, and they were still out for approval by the state. I think the last time we talked.
They literally just got approved.
Yes,
Like
since
2
then,
weeks.
so we didn't set up a capital project not knowing what the final bill was going to be, assuming we'd have lead time. Since we last talked about it, they got approved, they got delivered, we got billed. So we're going to try and take care of the mechanical part of getting the bill paid today at F&P, before set up a capital project and get it paid.
Mr. Chairman, it's also important to note that the acquisition of the machines is governed by a master agreement with Onondaga, so that we're enjoying their pricing and acquisition on these machines.
Things moved really slow until they didn't.
Right.
And they literally got approved by the state like 2 weeks ago. I mean, people were taking possession with no certification. So it
They
was,
waited, we didn't take them until they were certified, but they did come fast, but we were pushing also because the Dominion machines were so poor. The last 2 elections, we've had major problems that have caused headaches, rebuilding ballots in the middle of the day or whatever. not being able to put the results on the website. We had a guy drive from Endicott with a server that we had just bought a server to do that job, and it didn't work on election night for the primary this year. So that's why we were pushing a little bit to get all this stuff done, so that we have these machines for this November. So we have a trial period before we run into the presidential primary and presidential election.
Okay. How many machines did we get?
150.
How long will it last? How many years will they have these now?
We had the other one since like, what was
2009.
2009? It's like making a call with a 20-year-old cell phone. I mean, it
Yeah.
works,
Yeah.
you can do it, but
So,
the
but do
technology.
they have a useful life expectancy?
We have a 5-year agreement right out of the gate, so it'll at least be 5 years and hopefully more like 10.
Well, they'll probably be able to upgrade just like Dominion did.
So break out the cost, it's about $90,000 a year for machines. For 10 years.
They warranted for 5 years.
Yeah,
No additional cost.
yes, that came in.
It'd be about $50,000 a year after year 5 to renew the warranties and software agreements.
Is there any market for the old machines, like maybe we send them to Georgia?
Dominion does not support those machines at all anymore.
So they're scrap.
They're scrap. And we've talked to solid waste. They're gonna send a person that takes all of the electronics. So our guys are taking them off, scanners and motherboard and all that, and the monitor. Putting that's gonna go into a box for them to pick up. The bottom part's just a tin box. That's gonna go to scrap. And I've arranged to have that all done through solid waste.
They were bought with HAVA funds. The state bought the entire states, but like they bought like 20,000 machines at the same time
Last time around.
last time around, and because they were bought with HAVA money, we can't sell them. Onondaga actually paid somebody $25 a machine to come and get their old machines. So we're just, it's a wash. It's not costing us anything, but we can't make money because they were federal, state money, sorry.
I have to say that the county's been very good as far as buildings and grounds. Came with a trailer and they took all the cardboard away to get it recyclable for the packaging, and now solid waste is gonna take care of this other part, so we're thankful for the help that we've gotten from the other departments. And from you for paying for them.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, I'm adjourned.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. First and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?